What's up, everyone? I finished first and second in my home leagues this year, and at the end of the year, I like to do sort of just a little retrospective on how we did, um, starting in the draft, any transactions that we made during the year, because you have to learn from your mistakes. There's a quote from Nelson Mandela: "I never lose. I either win or learn." Very important that we're learning from our mistakes. So we're going to go through two of the leagues that I was in this year, kind of take a look at the draft. We won't go through every draft pick I made, but we'll look at the draft, lessons learned, take a look at some transactions, lesson learned from those, and see how ultimately I wound up in the championship for both of those leagues. And yeah, hopefully we can learn a little bit and apply that going forward. The two leagues were set up with the same rule set, but we had a different player base for both of them. It was still a lot of our friends. They weren't like public leagues or anything like that. Um, the rules were it was 12-man PPR, so 12 people in the league. PPR, point per reception. Uh, you draft a quarterback, two wide receivers, two running backs, tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and six bench spots. One kind of oversight that we made on both leagues because we copied the rules for one of the leagues was we forgot to put in IR spots. So normally you have two spots for people who get injured. Whoopsies, we'll figure that out for next year. But the first league was a pretty fun one. I'm getting married in October, so we thought it would be a fun idea to invite everyone from our bridal party, which is pretty big group of people to play. Uh, Not all of them have played fantasy football. Actually, probably less than half of them had played fantasy football before. Um, so it was, first time for a lot of people. A bunch of my friends aren't huge sports people. I met them through playing video games, and they have friends who have played fantasy football, so they're interested. And it's a pretty, low stakes. Try it out, see if you like it. And at the end of the year, I asked, if everybody had fun, and a lot of them are really excited to continue to play fantasy going forward, um, which is great. And then the other league is a league that my friends have been doing for probably over a decade. I just got involved with it a couple years ago. I met this group of friends through my fiance. It's all her childhood friends, so really tight group of people. I squeaked in there, and last year didn't do so hot, but this year I wound up winning. Um, so they were both fun leagues. Both kind of had a different dynamic. And we'll roll through how the draft went here for each of them. So in my bridal party league, I had the ninth overall pick. I had been doing all sorts of mock drafts throughout the month of August because I feel that mock drafts are the best way to prepare for the season. You get a lot of that preseason lay of the land, see where people are going, and I think it's just a lot of good information. It's fun to do them, and you get used to everything. If you've never played fantasy before, it's a good way to learn how your app of choice, whether it's ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo, um, you learn how they work a little bit, so you're more comfortable in the draft room, and it's fun. And you can usually pick in the mock drafts where you're drafting from, and that'll help you pick. So I was the ninth pick in this draft, and in most of my mock drafts, I was getting either Puka Nakua or Devon A-Chain. Um, I had A-Chain in another league, so I opted to go for Puka Nakua. I like to diversify my leagues a little bit more. That way, I'm not looking at the same guy in every league. I do tend to, in the middle of the season, when I'm making trades, maybe target a lot of the same players that way. But in the draft, I like to diversify a little bit, give myself kind of a better chance to win at least one of the leagues that way. So got Puka Nakua, was hoping A Chain would um, last to the second round. He did not, but I got another great receiver, Nico Collins. I drafted Amari Hampton in the 3rd round, which was I was really high on him in the preseason. Unfortunately, he got injured during the season, but my my biggest heartbreak in this draft was taking Hampton here because James Cook went the very next pick, and James Cook would have been perfect for me here. We all know how James Cook's season went. He went bananas pretty much the entire year. Um, it would have been good to have a nice veteran presence because, as you'll see in a couple rounds, I forget to get veterans. So, 4th round, I went out and got a quarterback. I didn't really love the talent in the 3rd and 4th rounds this year in the draft, so I'm comfortable in my quarterback. Don't need to draft another one. Then I make the big mistake. Travion Henderson. I was big on Travion in the preseason. He was flying up draft boards, which put some pressure on me to take him. Um, if I had taken James Cook in the 3rd round instead of Hampton, Henderson would have been fine here because you have veteran back and a rookie back. Now I've got a running back room where my 2 starters are both rookies. They might not see the field until week 5. Um, so that really is going to put me behind the 8 ball in a very important position that could get me a lot of points. Um, I wind up taking Tet McMillan. I take a flyer on Rashee Rice because he's suspended, but the the thought is he's going to put up a ton of points when he gets back from suspension. Um, so my wide receiver room is awesome. Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Tet McMillan, Rashee Rice, like awesome. Running back room, rookies. So I think, all right, now time to get a veteran running back. Who do I pick? Joe Mixon. Um, hmm. Joe Mixon was hurt during the offseason. He wound up not playing a single snap the entire year. Now, did we know that he wasn't going to play all year? No, but we did know that he probably wasn't going to start the season. So that was another like major draft mistake by me. I get my tight ends in Tyler Warren and Zach Ertz, pick up another rookie running back in Quinshon Judkins, who is suspended to start the season. But now my whole running back room is 3 rookies and a veteran who's not playing. So that is kind of a bummer to start the year. I do wind up taking Matt Stafford in the final round to stack with Puka Nacua. In the preseason, I dropped him. We'll see when we go over my transactions, but I knew that I made a mistake with the running back room and needed to try to find someone who could fill that void, and I dropped Stafford, which I don't know that necessarily that was the right decision. He wound up having. We'll see if it was an MVP season or not. I mean, he's a nominee for the MVP, but he went crazy with Puka and Devontae all season. So it would have been nice for me to hang on to him there. But I really set myself back in this draft by taking all these rookies and an injured vet. But that is not a death sentence. You can still work your way through that and come back. And this league, I eventually finished in 2nd place. But I had to be a little bit more active trying to fix that running back room. Draft was okay. Love the receivers. I'm cool with the quarterbacks. Cool with the tight ends. Running back room is scary. So that's kind of how that draft went. Now, the other draft actually went really smooth, I think. I got the 7th pick for this draft. I was hoping that Christian McCaffrey would be there. He went, I believe, right before my pick. So no CMC. Bummer. That would have been great. But I do wind up taking CeeDee Lamb in the 1st round. Always a great pick. He didn't have his best year of all time, but he's definitely a 1st round caliber talent. This is the league I got Devon Achane in the 2nd round. It was great. I got Brock Bowers in round 3, and then I took Jaden Daniels in the 4th round. Now, I don't love that I took a tight end and a quarterback back to back in 3 and 4 because now I'm kind of setting my depth back a bit. But rounds 3 and 4 didn't really have a lot of good value from those positions. So I've at least got a stud receiver, stud running back. Now I've got a tight end who is either going to be one or two during the season. He wound up getting injured, so bummer. Um, and I've got Jaden Daniels, who, if he plays like he did the year before, could put up a ton of points. And I don't need to draft another tight end or a quarterback because I can stream them on their bye weeks. So not the worst thing in the world. I just didn't love taking those two position, not both of them early. I love taking one tight end or one quarterback. Don't love taking them both. So that was a little bit of a mistake there. I get Xavier Worthy, who should have a good season before Rasheed Rice comes back from his suspension. Tat McMillan is a rookie that I'm really high on. I get ETN pretty late, actually, 7th round, which is awesome. I think that last year was more injury and scheme, and there was a lot of turmoil going on in Jacksonville with the coaching last year. So I'm high. I'm a lot higher on him than most people were in all my mock drafts. So happy with the ETN pick. Take a flyer on Travis Hunter. Hope for the best. He winds up getting injured. I take Deebo Samuel late, which I think was really good value. I took Rome Odunze late, really good value. I wound up getting a really good kicker. And then a couple, handcuff running backs, Quinshon Judkins again, just in case he pops off. So I actually really, really like this draft. At the end of the draft, I'm really happy with what I got. I get the email that says I got an A+ on my draft. I'm sending it around, talking some smack to everybody in the league. And then over the course of the first few weeks of the season, my first round pick, CeeDee Lamb, injured. Brock Bowers, injured. Jaden Daniels, injured. Xavier Worthy on the first play of the season, injured. Travis Hunter eventually got injured. Deebo Samuel's value goes down because Jaden Daniels got injured. Rome Odunze got injured. There were injuries everywhere. And this is one thing a lot of my friends that do play fantasy have problems with, is when they get a lot of injuries, they get just kind of down on the season. They're like, oh, I've got the worst luck. Like, you can't predict injuries, but you can still make moves to come back from them. My 4 out of my first 5 picks were injured for long periods of time. But I made moves during the season, and you really just have to get into the playoffs, because if you get into the playoffs, you give yourself a shot. And I wound up making enough moves to squeak into the playoffs, and I mean squeak into the playoffs. And then the guys that I targeted during the season went crazy in the playoffs, and I wound up winning this league. So just because you have a bunch of injuries early, I was decimated early. I had literally no quarterback or tight end. But just because you have injuries, once again, not a death sentence. You can come back. That's just part of fantasy, and a lot of what I love about really active leagues is people that know they can come back. So, especially if you're paying money for these leagues with your friends, don't just give up because you lost a couple guys. Like, get in there, do a little research, watch our channel. We'll be giving updates for waiver wire pickups, trade targets, and stuff like that, and get back in there and win your league. It can happen to me. Most fantasy football players are just guessing. You wake up Sunday morning, open your app, see what players on your bench are projected to get the most points, start whoever's the highest, and hope for the best. That's why you're losing close games, and that's why you're not making the playoffs. I'm Steve, and welcome to Fathom Fantasy. We don't guess here. We dive deeper. We built this channel like an NFL front office, using data, film study, and strategy to build rosters that don't just win weeks, they win championships. But you can't win a title alone. That's why I've opened up the Fathom Fantasy Discord server. This isn't just a chat room, it's a war room. It's completely free to join as a free agent. You'll get access to breaking news alerts from the NFL's top insiders, a community advice channel where you can fix your lineups, and a place to vent when your kicker inevitably misses that field goal on Monday night that would have won you the week. And for those of you who are serious about winning, the Dynasty Builders, the Sharks, you can upgrade the GOAT status. Here, you'll get access to me and the Fathom Pros in the Ask an Expert channel. You'll get my weekly rankings, and you'll get access to my waiver wire picks before they go live on YouTube. If you're ready to stop guessing and start winning, click the link in the description or in the pinned comment and join Fathom Fantasy. Now let's go get that ring. Now that the draft is over, we've really got to try to fix these rosters. We know in my Bridal Party League, I've basically got a rookie running back room, but I have great receivers in Puka, Nico, Rashi Rice, Tet McMillan. So we're going to try to leverage that and play the waiver wire a bit here to fix the roster. It's really important to keep tabs on NFL news. If you join our Discord server, we have an NFL news channel that streams all sorts of updates from Twitter, X, whatever you call it nowadays, for Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, and some other accounts. So you get up to the minute news for what's happening. This is going to cover injuries. This is going to cover what things look like in practice. It's really helpful for the waiver wire, especially. Early in the season for me in this league, Joe Burrow's my quarterback. He gets hurt. He's out for a long time. I need a new quarterback. So I hit the waiver wire, pick up Daniel Jones. He winds up having a really good season up until he tears his Achilles. But Danny Dimes held it down for me until eventually I picked up Jacoby Brissett off of waivers, who held it down for me getting 20 points a week until Joe Burrow came back, and Burrow was my playoff quarterback. I was able to pick up Woody Marks off of waivers at one point. He looked like he might have some serious potential. I got Ramondre Stevenson off of waivers, which was big because he's the one who's getting the snaps instead of Travion Henderson. So that was big for me. I do wind up making a trade of Ramondre Stevenson and Romeo Doubs for Jordan Mason and Jake Tonjes. Mason wound up being a dud, but and Ramondre winds up actually being the one piece that really beat me in the championship. Unfortunate. Another thing that to really pay attention to is your league transactions. I noticed somebody dropped Brandon Aubrey during Dallas's bye week. So I scooped him up, and now all of a sudden my kicking position was set for the year. Didn't need to worry about that, which was great. But then, week 11, week 12, last 2 weeks you can put trades through. So it was time for me to really make some moves, set some targets. What my plan was to find a running back who I knew was going to get touches, who maybe was down a little bit in the beginning of the year, so their stock was a little bit low, but their schedule was really easy at the tail end of the season. So my targets were Chase Brown, because I think once Burrow comes back, he's going to be great. He was great at the end of last season. I'm sure he struggled at the beginning of this season, but I'm hoping for greatness there. And Bucky Irving is another one. He got injured, so there's a little bit of a danger there. But then Travion Henderson starts balling out for me because Ramondre Stevenson got hurt. So I'm still going into these weeks trying to make some trades. I wind up making a trade of Quinshon Judkins, Tet McMillan, and Tyrone Tracy, who I had picked up after Scatabo got hurt. And I trade them for Tyler Algier, who is a great handcuff if Bijan goes down. Probably the best handcuff in the league, honestly. T. Higgins and Chase Brown. So I got one of my guys. I could be good with Chase Brown and Travion Henderson, honestly. Chase Brown was my big target. I've still got my wide receiver pieces. I didn't have to trade any of them, which was, I had to trade Ted, but my big pieces are still there. I've still got Puka, still got Nico, still got Rashi Rice. Now I've got T. Higgins as well. Like, this is actually kind of a crazy four. So week 12, I have a friend in the league who's a big Chargers fan, and it pays to know who's in your league. So I dangle in front of him a guy who's on the bubble of making the playoffs. Dangle in front of him Omarion Hampton, Chargers running back, who's been hurt all year, and T. Higgins. He sends back to me Bucky Irving, who's coming off an injury. Omarion Hampton's coming off an injury. That's basically a wash. But I also get Drake London back because I'm giving up T. Higgins, who's a good piece, especially once Burrow gets back. And Drake London had just gotten hurt, and he needed help now, my buddy, to try to get into the playoffs. So we make this trade, and now all of a sudden my receivers are Puka, Nico, Rashi, Drake London, like all sorts of first round talent right there. So another strategy I had going into the playoffs was let's try to consolidate these 4 receivers into 3 better ones. I tried sending out trade offers with everyone except for Puka. Puka was pretty much untouchable on my roster. I was trying to send combinations to get JSN, to get Jamar, to get Amon Ra. Nobody was biting. But I eventually sent Rashi Rice and Drake London to get CD Lamb. Now, this trade doesn't really pan out for either of us, but you get what I'm going for. Not every move works out. My Jordan Mason trade wound up being worthless for me, and Ramondre came back to bite me in the championship game. CD did better than the 2 I traded for, but if I didn't make the CD trade, I actually would have been forced to start Christian Watson, and that would have won me the championship week. But yeah, I mean, when you go back and look at the season, injuries are unpredictable. They're not going to hold you back. I lost a lot of people to injury. Hampton, Burrow. I picked up London, who was injured. Rashi Rice eventually got injured for the playoffs. Thank God he wasn't on my roster anymore. Travion got a concussion at the end of the season, which is probably why he lost snaps to Ramondre. Yeah, so don't try to predict injuries. Always be ready for the waiver wire. I was able to get Brandon Aubrey, Woody Marks, Ramondre Stevenson, Jacoby Brissett. I got Joe Burrow back because I had dropped him at one point thinking he wouldn't come back for the season. And Christian Watson. I mean, big waiver wire pickups. Make sure you're keeping tabs on the NFL news, like I said before, because making the playoffs is priority number 1. If you get in, you can win. You just need people to get you in, and anybody could pop off. And then what I also try to do is find playoff targets. Chase Brown, Bucky Irving. I got them both. Chase Brown was instrumental in me getting to the championship game. So just because the draft goes bad, just because there's injuries, don't give up. You still got a shot. Just get there. Now, for our league with our friends, I had a pretty good draft, so I didn't really need to do much going into the season. I do make a little trade just to kind of get that rookie running back potential breakout at the end of the season. I trade Travis Hunter for RJ Harvey. Feel pretty good about that. Then Brock Bowers gets hurt week 1. So have to hit the waiver wire to try to fix that issue. I pick up Harold Fannin. Juwan Johnson's out there. Feeling pretty good still about what's going on in my tight end room. Then Jaden Daniels gets hurt. Okay, crap. I need a quarterback. I pick up Danny Dimes off the waiver wire. Then in the middle of the season, like week 7, I want to try to make an upgrade at my running back position because I've got A-Chain and I've got ETN, but I actually really like Derrick Henry. I think he plays better at the end of the seasons. He has a history of doing that. He had a really great week 1, which makes me feel like he's not totally washed. But with Lamar being out, he hasn't really been spectacular. So I'm thinking, all right, let's figure out a trade to get Derrick Henry. It winds up being a gigantic trade. I send Quinshon Judkins, Ted McMillan, Travis Etienne, and Bashal Tootin for Derrick Henry, Brian Thomas Jr., Nick Chubb, and Troy Franklin. Really, this trade winds up amounting to ETN for Henry at the end of the day. But that's what got it done. And ultimately, that trade is why I won the championship because Derrick Henry went off in week 17. He got 44 plus points in the championship. So you got to find your targets. I knew that he's good at the end of the year and that he had a pretty good schedule going into the playoffs, so he was a big target for me. Um, then we get back into it, and Alec Pierce is playing really well with Daniel Jones, so I pick up Alec Pierce off waivers, um, and then I make another trade in week 10. So I wanted to get some value for Brian Thomas Jr., Debo. I had Rondé Gadsden at this point. Um, the Seahawks had just traded for Rashid Shaheed, and I really wanted to pick him up. I wanted to get another receiver who was underperforming, so I targeted Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. Um, so I wound up trading those three for Shaheed, Marvin Harrison Jr., and I just take Tucker Kraft because, at that point he was done for the season and someone's going to drop him anyway. So why don't I just grab him? I felt like Debo was going to lose a lot of value with Jane Daniels being hurt. Was really hopeful that Rashid Shaheed was going to thrive in Seattle. It turns out he didn't until the fantasy season was over, pretty much. Um, but not every trade works out. This wound up being a nothing burger for the most part. Um, Rumors start to swirl that Joe Burrow might be back for the fantasy playoffs, so I dropped Jaden Daniels because even if he comes back, I think they're going to shut him down at that point. But even if he comes back, I'd rather have Joe Burrow than Jaden Daniels going into the playoffs. Um, I was able to pick up Tyler Algier off of waivers as a handcuff back. Like I mentioned, probably the best handcuff back in the league. Um, and then week 12, I had a big waiver wire week. I was able to pick up Michael Wilson and Jacoby Brissett. Brissett got me to the playoffs when Daniel Jones went down, and Michael Wilson wound up being the steal of the century. It felt like he might be Arizona's wide receiver one going forward. He was just putting up crazy numbers, and he got me into the playoffs. I mean this was a league where I had lost one week by 0.1 points on Monday night because I swapped out a player right before the game started. So, just getting into the playoffs was a trip for me. And Michael Wilson wound up doing that for me. I did trade Roma Dunze to get Ted McMillan back. And then right after that trade, Rome got hurt. So, good thing I got Ted back as well. Um, and then another change I made was trying to get a better tight end. I had Brock Bowers who had come back, but who do you trust in Las Vegas? So I traded um, Brock Bowers, Danny Dimes, who hadn't been hurt yet, and Alec Pierce. So a nice stack there, and got back Trey McBride, which I felt was a great upgrade from Bowers. And now that I had Jacoby Brissett, I could stack him. And I also took back Jackson Dart because it looked like he might have an easy playoff schedule, but with his injuries and how the Giants season went, I wound up just stashing him for the end of the year. But from this season, I mean, not every move works out. We learned that in both of my leagues. I probably should have kept RJ Harvey. I felt like that trade I made in week 7 in this league, I lost until Derrick Henry went crazy in week 17. He won me the league. It hurt losing ETN, but I made the playoffs and Derrick Henry won me the league. So, um, not every move works out, but you should keep trying to make moves to improve your roster. This was the league where I was decimated by injuries, and as we talked about with the other league, injuries are unpredictable, but they don't completely handcuff you from winning your league. I mean, I lost, as I said before, 4 of my top 5 picks. CD, Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels, Xavier Worthy, all hurt for extended periods of time. So be ready for the waiver wire. I was able to get Michael Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Burrow in this league. As I said before, keep tabs on NFL news. You can do that in our Discord. Making the playoffs, priority number one. And also for this league, find your playoff targets. The last league, it was Chase Brown and Bucky Irving for me. This league, I wanted Derrick Henry and Trey McBride. Now, I might not have been able to get them the week that I decided that that's who I wanted to get, but you make moves to ultimately get there. And, it panned out for me in this one. Finished number one overall. And the real big thing to take from this is your league does not end on draft day. Whether you're a longtime fantasy football player or it's your first time playing fantasy football, you got to remember that the draft is just the beginning. You have a long journey, depending on how your league's set up, usually a 14-week regular season and then 3 weeks of playoffs. You've got to keep an eye on NFL news. You got to keep an eye on the waiver wire. You got to try to make trades to fix holes in your roster, and you got to make some playoff targets so that when you get into the playoffs, because that's our number one goal, when you get into the playoffs, you've got the best chance to put up big numbers and to win, because we want that trophy, we want the ring, and we want that bread.